A major development in a years-long legal battle surrounding Oregon's gun laws. This morning, the Oregon Court of Appeals ruled the gun control provisions in Measure 114 are constitutional.
While gun safety advocacy groups are celebrating the ruling, it is not a done deal yet. Fox 12's Spencer Schott joins us now to break down what the ruling means.
Now, this ruling comes nearly 3 years after Measure 114 passed. Back in 2022, Oregon voters voted in favor of Measure 114 by a very small margin. We're just talking 50.7%. Then in 2023, a Harney County Circuit Court judge issued an emergency injunction blocking 114 from taking effect. But now in 2025, the Court of Appeals ruled the plain wording of Measure 114, requiring background checks and permits for buying a gun and banning larger magazines, does not violate the state constitution. But these laws are not in place just yet. Lawyers representing the gun owners say they plan to bring this to the state Supreme Court. And one gun store I spoke with says he hopes the injunction stopping 114 stays in place for the sake of his business.
Here we go again.
The owner of Aloha Arms, Chris Ballman, says he is bracing for impact after hearing about the Court of Appeals ruling on Measure 114.
The last time this was voted into place, the background check queue got insanely large. The state was not prepared to deal with it, and there was a general consensus of panic by the firearms community members.
As of Wednesday afternoon, the number of firearm background check applications jumped to more than 200. The Oregon State Police is in charge of completing those checks, and gun safety advocates say those background checks are needed to ensure community safety.
This bill does nothing to stop responsible firearm owners from purchasing firearms. What it does do is ensure every firearm that's sold has a completed background check.
But Ballman is also concerned how Measure 114 will impact what he's allowed to stock and sell in his store.
That would probably affect my current inventory pretty heavily. Most manufacturers have firearms that have magazines limits higher than 10 rounds, and so I would have to either sell that inventory off before the measure takes effect, or I would have to then remove those magazines from the firearms, spend the money out of my pocket to replace those magazines to then sell my firearms.
The Court of Appeals Judge Darlene Ortega wrote in her opinion, "The ban on large capacity magazines is a reasonable regulation directed at the specific observable public safety concern that people of Oregon sought to address." Finally, Ballman is worried about the new permitting process to buy a gun required by Measure 114.
As far as we know, that there is no actual permitting process in place. The state has not informed any of the dealers across the entire state of Oregon about any ability to receive a permit to purchase because they haven't actually put the groundwork in.
Mark says OSB is working with the state legislature to get a permitting process laid out by the time Measure 114 would take effect. The plaintiffs in this case now have 35 days to file a petition of review with the state Supreme Court, and that could go one of two ways. The state Supreme Court could uphold the Court of Appeals ruling and 114 would become law. Or the state Supreme Court could agree to review the case, and both sides would have to present their arguments for and against 114 all over again. And to complicate these matters even more, back in 2023, a U.S. District Court judge ruled the measure was allowed under the U.S. Constitution. But that ruling was appealed and is on hold while a similar California law limiting magazine sizes is being considered by the U.S. Supreme Court. Reporting in studio, Spencer Schott, Fox 12 Oregon.